And next, Axios Richmond reporter Sabrina Moreno.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for being here today. My name's Sabrina Moreno and I'm a reporter for Axios Richmond, and I have the honor of welcoming Richmond's Director for the Office of Sustainability, Laura Thomas. So Laura, thank you so much for being with us today. I would love to start kind of big picture and ask, how do you define sustainability, and how does that definition frame the way that you approach this work?
It's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. A lot of times people hear the term sustainability and they think we're talking about specific things, like maybe it's recycling or maybe it's clean energy. But really, sustainability is a systems approach to thinking about the work that we do. So how do the decisions, the programs that we design, how do those impact the environment, society, and the economy all together? So really, it's a way to think about how we approach our work rather than a specific set of topics.
Yeah, and to dive into a specific set of topics, RVA Green 2050 is a major climate action plan that you oversee. And by the numbers, it aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 45% by 2030 and get to net zero greenhouse emissions by 2050. Where are we on that in a progress kind of way? And what can you tell us about the work that's already been done to make sure we're hitting those milestones?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited about those goals. We're actually finishing up our first greenhouse gas inventory in 4 years. So we'll be releasing soon some updates on those numbers and some progress on how we're achieving that. RVA Green 2050 was adopted in February of last year. And in just over a year, we've already accomplished 12% of that plan. And that plan includes over 130 specific action items to get us towards those net zero goals. So we've really been making a lot of progress, including establishing an energy program within the organization, working on reducing our internal greenhouse gas emissions, and we recently achieved the mayor's goal of being 50% renewable energy for municipal operations.
And hearing that 12%, the remaining part that we have to go, what are the greatest challenges that your office is kind of facing in being able to meet those goals? What is it that you most need right now?
Absolutely. We are making excellent progress, but there's a lot of work to do, and it's not something that our office can accomplish alone. And that was something that we made clear in the planning process, right? It's going to take every community member, every person in and around the city of Richmond needs to participate in achieving those goals in order for us to get there.
And I'm curious on this because I've spoken to folks who have mentioned that Richmond, in many ways, can be a model for how that collaboration has worked among nonprofits, local government, through grants. And I'd love to just hear a little bit more about that. What does that model kind of look like currently? What has that meant?
Yeah, the city of Richmond is proud to have led a first-in-the-nation model of convening with community-based organizations, specifically ones that serve Black and Brown and lower-income communities here in Richmond. We convened many organizations that work on the front lines of climate change in order to ideate projects and apply for federal funding. Right now we're at an unprecedented time where it's once in a lifetime with the Inflation Reduction Act offering billions of dollars to fund equitable climate work. So we've created that model with convening folks, working on those front lines, going after projects, and I'm happy to share that we've already received millions of dollars over this last just year alone towards that end, and we're sharing that model of working with CBOs in those frontline communities with other organizations. I had the pleasure last week of attending the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network annual meeting. It is a great convening of folks in roles similar to mine across the Southeast, and it's clear that Richmond is a leader in going after these IRA dollars.
Yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention this, but Laura is the first director for the Office of Sustainability that Richmond has ever had. But going back to funds, I'm glad that you mentioned the IRA because you seemed energized about when we talked last week about how Richmond can really be a story of how the IRA can transform a community. And I'd love to just hear about how you kind of see that happening, and what projects and initiatives we can expect in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone on my team can tell you that my motto has been that I want to make sure the city of Richmond becomes the story of how the IRA can transform a community. The city of Richmond is ready for these dollars. The city of Richmond is poised to transition and leapfrog to our clean energy future. There are many programs that we're going to be rolling out. We recently received 2 Department of Energy grants, the Communities LEAP grant, as well as the Energy Future grant. And so we'll be working with our community-based organizations to address some of the most critical issues in our clean energy advancement. So one example is creating a energy savings hub where community members can log on, maybe it's an app or a website, they can enter their address and look at all of the energy savings programs that are going to be available to them, and they will not have to, like they currently do, explore all these different resources or websites or confusing language. So we're really going to be simplifying it. So it's projects like that we're really excited about, that we're going to be working on in the next year and beyond.
And so just to make sure I'm hearing that correctly, it's kind of a really major part of this is also bringing it directly to residents and how they can kind of be a part of it.
Absolutely. Again, when we looked at creating RVA Green 2050, we really thought about how everyone can get involved and what kind of actions that any community member can take to help advance towards that clean energy future, towards our overall climate goals, while still centering all of our work in equity.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to that for a second, but as we all know, Richmond is in an election year where we're going to have a new mayor, and that makes me think of sustainability in another way. So what can you tell us about maybe what's needed to be able to sustain the work that you're already doing, maybe expand upon it, regardless of administration change, just to make sure that we're staying on track for those goals?
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, our work continues, and we're so thrilled that we have this really great framework and strategic plan for how to move the work forward. We have several action items that we'll be working on this year and continuing into next, and then we have action items in our plan to continue us through 2030 and beyond. So the work that we're going to do will persist, and it is clearly laid out what the community has asked of us and how we are going to collaborate on that work moving forward.
And one last question before we end on a little bit more of a fun note. I want to talk about equity for a second. That's also a major part of Richmond's climate action plan, and we've seen how Richmond's history very much informs the present, what those disparities look like, especially as climate change is expected to worsen. What specific strategies are in place to ensure that those benefits that we've been talking about are equitable and accessible to those communities that your office is trying to help as well?
Yeah, it's a great question and so important. And I'm really happy to say that, again, the city of Richmond is really a leader in this equity-centered work, especially in the Southeast. So we're so excited to be recognized for that and to really be leading the charge here in the state and in the Southeast. We have tools that our team uses on a regular basis, including an equity framework that helps us ask the right questions before maybe starting a project or a new program. We also have our Climate Equity Index, which has many, many social vulnerabilities baked into it, and it's a map of where the front lines of climate change are in our community, so we can explore where our work should be and make sure that we're focusing our efforts and prioritizing those communities. A great example is an urban forestry grant that we recently received. It's $6 million for Black and Brown led urban greening. So we'll be working in the Justice 40 census tracts in the city of Richmond to make sure that that urban greening is specifically benefiting those folks.
And quick question on this. You mentioned when we started off about that sustainability definition that sometimes people think it's just this and this. And I'm curious how urban greening ties into this conversation about clean energy and renewable energy, and maybe ways that people might not immediately connect.
Absolutely. So urban greening is so critical to healthy outcomes for our community members. Having a thriving urban forest here in the city of Richmond reduces the impacts of the urban heat island. It improves our stormwater quality. It improves our air quality. We know that in Richmond there's high levels of asthma and that the pollen count is very, very high. So having that canopy there to filter it actually impacts the human health outcomes significantly. So it's really important that we improve and increase our tree canopy, we remove invasive species, and that we think about things like agroforestry, which is forestry that provides us food. Food is such a critical part of having a healthy community, and if we can provide fresh fruits and vegetables that are healthy and organic to our community members, we're really advancing that equity work.
Yeah, and classic journalist thing to do. You say it's the last question and then another one pops in. So what do solutions from your office look like when we're talking about things like the heat island effect, which are long-standing issues, and places like Gilpin Court could be 15 degrees hotter than wealthier parts of the neighborhood. So how's your office kind of tackling that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are working in partnerships with other departments, other teams within the organization as they look at, say, planning for future development or looking at our updated zoning ordinance that we'll be working on. So really what we do is partner and collaborate and provide the tools and resources that we've developed, such as the Climate Equity Index or our social vulnerability mapping or our vulnerability assessment. The vulnerability assessment, for example, shows where critical city assets are and how vulnerable they are to things like the urban heat island or to flooding. And so when we are making planning decisions, we know what's at the highest risk and what may be at lower risk. So through those partnerships, collaborations, and through providing those tools, we're really able to help the whole organization think about climate change, think about these different impacts, and that connectivity across the social, the environmental, and the financial.
Yeah, and as promised, we're gonna end on one fun thing, and my question to you is, what is your favorite takeout spot in Richmond?
Oh, okay. Favorite takeout spot in Richmond. I'm so glad they just reopened. Yum V's To Go, if you haven't been, is a great vegan spot that just opened up a little past Scott's Addition here in Richmond, so check it out.
I absolutely will. My offering is Tulsi in Carytown, their paneer tikka masala. Well, anyway, we are out of time, so we will leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everybody in the audience who showed up, everybody on the live stream. A shameless plug here to subscribe to Axios Richmond at axios.com/Richmond. You will see me and my co-author Carrie Pfeiffer weekdays, Monday through Friday, and the best part is that it is free. Gotta plug that in. But thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.